Good evening. Tonight I'd like to talk to you about advertising. Now, I'm sure all of you know what advertising is. It's some kind of a publication or a pronouncement that encourages people to buy a product or a service. And it has a very long history. Printed advertising can be traced back as far as Song Dynasty China, which goes back about 1,000 years, and spoken advertising by word of mouth, can be traced back even further. Now, you might think this is a bit of a strange thing for someone who's teaching a technical English course to be including. The main reason why I'm doing it is because it gets you to think in a different way. You can think when you prepare an advert about taking information and then directing it, skewing it, presenting it in a way to convince people. And you can do it to an extent in an advertisement that you can't do in a scientific report. Scientific reports are supposed to be quite neutral. They're supposed to stick very much to the facts. List the facts comprehensively, all of the facts. Whereas when you prepare an advertisement, you can pick the best things, you can pick the best characteristics, you can forget all of the stuff that looks negative about your product, you can make exaggerated claims, there are limits, you'll probably end up in trouble if you claim that your cigarettes improve people's health. If you say, on the other hand, that your new pocket knife makes a young professor's life miles better, miles more satisfying, then, well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's an exaggeration, but it's not going to land you in court. Now, a lot of people are quite cynical about advertising. They say, well, there's a well-known saying that advertising is about getting people to buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't like. I don't see it quite that cynically. It's quite an art putting together an advertisement that's effective because it involves taking hold of perhaps a second or two of someone's time that really they don't have to spare because they're in a hurry, and inserting your idea, your product into their consciousness and doing it in such a convincing way that then later they come back and buy it. And the skills in persuasion that you learn when you prepare advertisements are things that you can use to a lesser extent in all types of text that you write and all kinds of presentations that you give. And advertisements vary a lot depending on the market. So you have to think about the type of person who's going to see your advertisement and what they're going to find appealing and focus it on them. So your task for the coming week will be to prepare an advertisement for your product that you've invented. And after that, I'll talk a bit about the final report. One thing I'll mention here is that the noun advertisement, it can be shortened to advert and even further to ad. And the shorter you make it, the more informal you make it. So in a legal document, it would definitely say advertisement. If you're talking about television, newspapers, you'd probably say advert in a presentation. And then very informally, people often just write ad. Usually, though, these refer to advertisement, that is the publication that's released, the TV spot, that kind of thing, and not the whole field. The whole field is then advertising. Now, a few weeks back, I asked you to upload some of your favorite advertisements. I've picked out 4 that I really like here. The first one is this advertisement for a minivan here, and it says, picks up 5 times more women than a Lamborghini. Now, this is funny. It's something you look at and it makes you want to smile or laugh. And this is good because you're already making the reader feel good. And a common thing in advertisements is also to use a play on words. Now, pick up in English has several different meanings. Pick up as in, take your car over to someone, open the door and let them get inside, then give them a ride somewhere. That's picking someone up, and that's really what it refers to in this advert. But there's also picking up a woman, as in, you meet a woman at a bar, you get her to go home with you on a date, that kind of thing. Then there's a pickup truck, and it's common to use text in advertisements that have more than one meaning. Another car advertisement here from Porsche, nobody's perfect. I like this because the company have taken something which looks like a disadvantage, they've made fun of it, and they've turned it into a very striking advertisement. Because here they've won the race in 1983, or no, I think they've won all of these race positions, or all of these stages of the race, up to the 8th stage have been won by Porsche, and the 10th has also been won by Porsche, but the 9th was won by BMW. And what looks like an imperfect record has here been turned into something that's entertaining, that feels good. An advert here from Parker, a famous manufacturer of higher quality pens, and it says, "Amazing writing discovery, the fountain pen." Now, I think this came out in the 1960s, but the fountain pen was invented, I think, back in the 19th century sometime, the type where the ink actually flows through the nib instead of taking a feather or a pen and then dipping it into the ink and taking it out and writing a line or two and then having to dip it again. So it certainly wasn't new, but this advert then came out at the time of the ballpoint pen, and it was saying, well, actually, the ballpoint pen isn't very satisfying, so why don't you come back and try our new fountain pen? And this theme, satisfaction, again, is very, very common in advertising, because adverts are designed to make people feel good, designed to make people have dreams, to think bigger, to think, well, what would my life be like if I had this extra product? This Pepsi advertisement I really like because it's just plain bizarre. Here you've got a drip bag that you'd have in a hospital, normally filled with saline or blood or something like that, and it's filled with Pepsi, with a Pepsi logo on it. And you just stop and you look at it and you think, what is that? And I love that. I think it's something just so striking. On the bottom it says Pepsi, come to life. Another reference back to the sort of resurrection on the hospital bed. When you're designing an advert for your own product, I would suggest that you keep it to one page. Very few print advertisements go beyond one page, and keep the amount of text on the advertisement relatively small. I think the Parker advertisement we looked at there was among the longer, that perhaps had 100 words of text on it. You can take a look at some of your favorite adverts yourself. The text I mentioned a few weeks back, the Crazy Ones text from Apple's Think Different advertising campaign, is also a very good example, and one that the advertising agency put a great deal of effort into creating. And it's useful to think about the influences that cause people to decide to buy something or cause people to reject something, to decide to ignore it. And I would categorize these in three main groups. I'd say there's the company reputation. So what they already know about the company. I mean, all of you will have some kind of opinion in the back of your mind about Nike or Apple or BMW or something. And it might be a positive feeling. You might think, well, I'd really like to have an Apple computer. Or it might think, well, no, I don't want to be a guy in a BMW. That's not my style. Or it could be a neutral thing if you've never heard of the brand before. And then there's the logic element, especially if it's the kind of product where it's not so emotional and it's not something where you're thinking, this is going to make my life so much better, I'm just looking for a solution here. You're maybe then going to look at the detailed specification, add up the costs, the benefits and things, the logical side of your thinking. And then there's the emotion. And the emotion is basically your gut reaction, your instinct. How do you feel? Do you want this product? And now, you could argue that reputation is partly logic, partly emotion. I've put it in its own category because it's often something that exists in the back of your head before you even see the advertisement, before you start to think about it. Now, most people will say that when it comes to consumer products, emotion is by far the strongest. So this is the kind of thing where you want to steer people's emotions. You want to get them to imagine, having fun with this product, a fun day out, maybe on a yacht, playing cricket, many fun days out in a new car, a faster computer, a camera that takes better pictures, all these kind of things. You want to get them to imagine these things. And often the graphics, so the pictures that you choose for your advertisement and the way you structure the text, your choice of every single word, can guide them towards having good feelings about your product. A lot of people in the advertising field talk about the AIDA model. Now, this is not a reference to Giuseppe Verdi's opera, but rather it's an acronym for attention, interest, desire, and action. Sometimes you'll see in this model that desire is replaced by the word decision. The idea is they see the advertisement and it attracts their attention. They think, what is that? It's interesting. And then you've already got to this interesting stage. What is it? It's interesting. Then you want to get them to then be sufficiently interested in the product that they then desire it. They want it in their life. And then they have to, at the end, reach a decision or make an action. I'm going to the shop. I'm going to order it on the internet. You can do some more reading about this yourselves on the internet, the AIDA model for advertising. Just keep it in the back of your mind when you create an advertisement for your product. The homework for the advertisement, this is something that I want to be submitted on a single page of A4 paper. I'd suggest that you use plenty of color, don't use too many words, use double meanings, word plays if you can. Try to get people to look at the advertisement and think, yeah, that's fun. I like that. It makes me smile. And I want this assignment then submitted in the user way as a PDF document by the 3rd of August. The second thing I want to talk to you about today is your final report for this project, which makes up quite a chunk of your final grade. This here is an example of a final report from a previous semester. This is a very good example for a miniature coffee maker, and it should be presented as a business plan. So I'm looking for a report that's probably something like 10 pages long. You can include plenty of the material that you've already done. So your first ideas, the 3 or 4 or more ideas that you came up with before you did the concept selection, you can detail those in 1 or 2 paragraphs. Use your sketches from earlier in the course. They don't have to be drawings that have been done on a computer. I'm quite happy for you to take a pencil sketch and scan it and put it in the final report. Then a section on the concept selection, which you've already done. Something about the failure mechanisms, which you'll probably then have to summarize from your partner who gave you some feedback about the possible failure mechanisms, maybe add some of your own, and your advertisement. And what I want you to do is to combine it all into a single report I'd expect that probably about half of that 10 pages will be completely new text and drawings. Doesn't have to be particularly dense, but some essential contents that I want to see in the report. First of all, an introduction. I then want to see the idea generation part. So what concepts did you come up with to start with? A brief summary of that, along with some sketches. Then the concept selection. How and why did you pick the concept that you chose for further development? Then a drawing and a description of your chosen concept. The failure mechanisms, as I mentioned. Manufacturing processes and costs. That means that you should decide upon the materials you're going to use to build this product, figure out approximately what each component will cost, add up the total, leave a margin in there for some things that you forgotten about, that sort of thing. Then figure out how much you will sell it for and how much it will be sold for in a shop at the end of the day when someone buys it, if they don't buy it from you directly. Maybe there's a wholesaler in between, that kind of thing. So I want you to write it as a business plan, try to make it neatly structured, try to make it look good so that it's convincing, so someone could pick it up and think, yes, I want to invest in that. And the submission date for the final report is the 12th of August. I'll show you a few pages from this report about the Airpresso, just to show you the kind of layout here. I'll upload a copy of this to StudIP because the student who prepared the report said that he didn't mind me sharing it as an example of a very good one. So here you can see a motivation section explaining why he's doing this, some drawings. Then the design process, how we went through getting to the Airpresso design. Technical specifications, so some numbers, some facts and figures about what the final product will be capable of. Some drawings and brief descriptions about how it works. Recycling and sustainability, so what you do when it breaks. Can you recycle it? Where do the materials come from? Manufacturing cost and a product timeline for the business idea. And at the end, another drawing. That's an excellent example. The only thing that's missing from there is a bit about the concept selection, which I'd like to see in your reports. As you can see from those pages, it doesn't have to be particularly dense when it comes to the text, and there's plenty from the course that you can then reuse. If you've got any questions about the report, please let me know. As I've said, it should be submitted on the 12th of August as a PDF document and sent to my email address. The final thing I'll mention is that if people have questions about English usage, about anything really, about the use of verb forms or prepositions or sentence structures, descriptions of time and events, stylistic questions, questions about differences in meaning, then please send me those questions by email and I'll make one final video answering these questions for you. So I'll do one final question and answer video for this course. The other thing to remember is the challenge from last week with the threaded rod. I'm still accepting entries for the competition, and the winner, I will buy them a 6-pack of beer of their choice delivered to their address, or if you don't drink, I'll get you some chocolates. Thank you very much. That's all for today. Good night.